today's webinar. Our topic today is Parents' Part in Holistic Education. With me, I have two amazing speakers. Our first speaker is Ms. Terrin Daly. She's an occupational therapist for the past 30 years and has worked mostly with parents and teachers in both Scotland and rural Northern California. She's a certified trainer in nonviolent communication and was a founding member of the Scottish Parliament cross-party group on peace education. She has delivered peace education modules to students in Scottish schools, including schools in disadvantaged areas. Our second speaker is Mrs. Manika Sharma. She is a CEO and founder of Think Zenith and the MD of Quick to Tree Akademia. Manika has been associated with the field of education both as management and researcher over a decade. She's an entrepreneur and an educationalist with a passion of exploring various fields of learning in light of ancient wisdom and modern era. With a vision of empowering parents who are passionate to guide their children as conscious contributors in society, she has been working on building up educational spaces that conduct programs for parents as well as children for the past 7 years. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you, Shruthi.
So my first question today is for Terrin. Terrin, what is education?
That is a good question. And it's one I've actually been thinking about. While I was looking around trying to explore what it really is education, I checked the roots of the word education. And I learned that there are actually two Latin roots for education. One is educare, which means to train or to mold. And this is what we often think of as education. But there's another one that's considered equally valid, which is educere. And that means to pull forth, to pull out. So this has been a big controversy in education for forever, maybe. There's one school of thought who says we have to train the children, we have to mold them into what we want them to be, into what they should be. And the other school says, no, it's all inside of them. We just have to let it unfold. We just have to draw it out who they really are. So what I think is we really need a balance between these two. If we have all educare and we train children all the time, telling them do this, do that, do this, do that, and we don't give them any space for who is in them to unfold, the seed of their own special self, it stays asleep inside somewhere. It never has a chance to emerge. So that's not a good thing. But on the other hand, if we do all educere and we just let them be and let them be whatever they are, they know it's like a vine that doesn't have a pole to climb up. So our guidance is like the pole, and the child growing is like the vine. And both of those things are needed in order for education in its best sense, in its holistic sense, which Manika is going to talk about, to emerge. So those are my thoughts for this morning, this evening on education.
That was something. I mean, I have never heard both definitions of it, so that's something really cool.
Yeah.
So as today's topic is holistic education, Manika, what is holistic education? How is it different from what is normally considered to be education?
So first of all, I loved the way Terrin really touched on the real meaning of word education as she has come across. But before I go along into explanation of or sharing my view on this term of holistic education, I'll just give a brief on how I ended up exploring this particular space, the way I look at it now. So a few years back when we moved back to India and my little one was 3-year-old, and I started exploring into various schools. At that point of time, I ended up into multiple schools which said that they will be providing holistic education for the child. And at that point, really speaking, I was overwhelmed that, well, from where we had come from, the education philosophy, where everything was very set to certain subjects, it has really evolved. And there were alignment of new concepts and new ideas, and the deliverance has changed a bit as well. And that was something really encouraging for me as an educationalist as well. But as the things went on and I started exploring and my children also started growing, and over the years of the sessions that I have conducted in various schools and colleges, slowly what I realized was that irrespective of, even if we are saying that we are providing our children holistic education, still our children are struggling with stress. They don't know how to handle relationships. And even as educators, we are not able to guide them into a way where it's a very easy transition for a teenager to, move up into their education space as well. So these were a few questions that started popping up into my mind, that if we are saying that we are providing holistic education, holistic means whole. And as whole, it is very important that every aspect is touched. And when we have shared that knowledge with an individual, here we are talking about a child, then a child should be empowered to handle the whole life in where it is more aware of what they are doing, right? So on that note, I started going deeper into this concept. And so today I'd like to share what I feel currently, what holistic education should mean in a real sense. And one of the ways that I really find interesting to explain this concept is the most common tool, we all are very, very familiar with, and it's already on the screen, your cell phones. So if I ask you a question that, let's say you walk into a factory, a manufacturing factory of a cell phone, and you're holding the hardware of a phone, just the hardware, everything, whatever your chips and everything you are holding, do you think you will be able to make it function? No, right? You will not be. You need some more things for it to function. So what will it be?
The software.
Absolutely. Okay, now assume that you have added the software also. You have your cell body, you have added the software. Will it function?
No, you still need the interface.
You still need the interface. You still need the energy as well, right?
Yeah.
If there is no charging in the cell phone, it is not going to function. Even though you have an interface, you have a software, it will not function. So in other terms, for a cell phone to function, we need the physical, we need the energy, we need the software. And like you said, that you need an interface, which is somewhere working behind the scenes, right? Okay, fine. I have the software. Now I end up into a jungle. Will it work?
No, you need signal.
You need signal, right? So the second part comes into the picture where you need towers. The towers which are sending signals and which your phone is collaborated to accept, right? Okay, there is a tower, there is a signal, but there's no satellite. Will the phone function?
No.
No, right? So now let's try to put this whole thing into a human perspective. So a quick recap: for a cell phone to function, we need the physical, we need the energy, we need software, we need tower for the signal, and we need a satellite, right? Now let's see how we can apply this into a human field. So we can move to the next slide. Yeah. So now you all have heard, people who are familiar with yogic philosophies have heard about koshas or layers or different aspects of humans as well, right? So let's just put it and collate it over here. Your physical body is your Annamaya kosha, your physical body, and the phone's body. That's your physical body. Your energy body, the one just like a phone needs energy, our body also needs energy for its operation. So that is the energy body or pranamaya kosha. Your third is your software, or something that in human form we will say manomaya kosha, right? And then you have your Vijnanmaya kosha as well, and Anandamaya kosha as well. So in human form, a whole of a human is here where all the layers are taking role in it, right? But what about the signals? tower signals. What comes next? We are not individuals who are working. We are constantly receiving and transmitting signals to each other. And I don't think there can be any other time more appropriate for us to explore the space of learning where we are right now. We can literally see that how, as humans, each one of us is interconnected, and we are sending signals continuously to each other. And then here comes your satellite. So where is the satellite for us? The whole universe. So this is whole, right? So you have your own individual layers, but for us to say that these layers are not present into a group format won't be right. The same kind of energy flow will be present at a second level as well, and then at a universal level as well. So with this, let us look at the education system that we have or we are working with. See, when we were going through our education system, I will say so many years back, it was primarily about these subjects. And if you will just look at these subjects, and still there are a lot of schools which have a similar kind of focus, I would say, irrespective of how many rest of the areas have been included, the focus is still on these subjects. Just have a quick glance on these subjects that we are teaching. Maths, physics, literature, language, it's biochemistry, whatever. It is very much on the physical plane of human existence. See, your body, you were just talking about a physical body. But what about rest of the areas? What about your energy body? What about the functioning of your mind? What about those aspects? So similarly, as I said that few years back, when I saw the term holistic curriculum being used, what came to me or what I saw was there were these add-on features which started forming a base where you had visual arts, performing arts, ICT, and these subjects started coming into the picture. But just think about it. If we as whole are 5-layered beings, which is further from self connected to society, as a society connected to universe, then don't you think that an education space should be expanded in all of these areas, right?
Yeah.
So this brings me to the next slide, which is, it's kind of a wheel which is functioning together. We cannot just have one element and think that we have done justice to it. So for me personally, I think holistic education as a whole needs to have all these elements into it. How we are connected to the, from self to group to universe, and in fact, if we can, to cosmos as well. Then we would have done justice to the term holistic education.
Okay. That's actually a lot to take in, because that's not how education systems work right now.
Yes.
So like you said, you need a group, right? So when it comes to parents, what roles do they play in a child's education? Like, how do they affect their child's education space?
Sure. So I'd like to have my next slide actually over here. So really speaking, when we talk about education, see, I would say there are some things that still need more understanding on the part of us as parents as well, and as a society as well. Because, we all are completely working on a belief system. We are working on something that we have been groomed into or we have been exposed to. Just like as you said that you never even thought about these concepts because we never even talked about these things, right? So when you don't even know that something like this is there, you'll not even touch on it. It is the awareness of the concept that comes at the very first part of it. So similarly, when we talk about the term education, mostly I've hardly come across hardly any parent, really speaking. The moment an education term is used, we immediately put it into the bracket where it has to do with the school or a college, you know, or a university. So if it is education, they are the ones they will be guiding. Once I have enrolled my child into a particular philosophy or a teaching method, my role is done. I don't have any more role or part to play into this thing. But I think that we really need to look at that concept again. Because just as I said that we are constantly vibrating and sending signals to each other, especially for a child, just look at the social environment that a child has. See, for a child, it is only parents, teachers, schools, friends, right? They are not working with the whole, I'll say whole globe. For them, this is the globe. So every signal coming from this group is going to have an impact on the child. So when a parent goes ahead and enrolls a child in a particular philosophy, may it be Montessori, may it be Waldorf, may it be multiple intelligence theory, I think it is very important that the parents also need to understand these philosophies themselves. Because if there is a gap between what is being taught in school and what is being applied at home, then definitely there are two vibrations which are clashing for the child. And it is not going to result, right? And I like to share an example that I keep coming across so many times. For example, in Montessori method, it is said that she says very clearly that we wait for the window of opportunity being given by nature. And then you introduce a concept to a child. But what happens is that if a parent is not aware about it, they tend to come to the school or the teachers and they'll constantly say that, see, my neighbor's child has started reading or they have started writing, but my child is not doing it. And that's the difference. That, you know, you might have enrolled your child in a Montessori philosophy school, but if you yourself have not grown into the understanding of it, you will not be able to do justice on that. And one of the very important things I like to actually share at this point of time is that 95% we function on our belief system. As adults, as children, it is always our belief system which is at play. And this belief system literally gets literally embedded in us during the first 10 years of our life. So, and that is the reason that, you know, it is not just sending to a right philosophy school that a parent has to work with. As far as education is concerned, the belief system is something that a parent will be making. And if they believe in that education system, they need to upgrade their own understanding of the life, of the philosophies, of introduction of the concepts to work in sync with the philosophy which they want to be embedded in their child.
Okay. So Taryn, what insights do you as an occupational therapist have about the parents' role in holistic education?
Well, I first want to talk a little bit about the children themselves. And I love how Manika has brought in the multi-dimensional aspect of people, of humans, of children. And I want to start with the soul, the child's soul, before it comes into the world. And it's out wherever the souls live in this beautiful space, free, totally free to come and go and be and learn. And then perhaps the children that are being born into the world right now are the ones that the world is calling because it needs them. Because we're in a very troubled time in the world now. We're in a transitional time right now. And it's like certain souls are being called in because they're needed. And these are the souls I'm calling the new children. And they come into the world, and and what do they find once they get here? They enter a world that's not easy, and yet they've managed to bring wonderful, wonderful gifts. Many of these children that are being born now, we find them to be highly sensitive. They're wise, curious, intuitive, empathic, spiritual. I'm sure everyone watching will be able to relate to these qualities in their children. They're also often gifted in art, in music, or in math, engineering. They relate really well, some of them, to animals. Each has their own gifts, that they bring really true gifts into the world. These are really special children, these new children. I think parents will be able to relate to this and understand the gifts that their own children are bringing. But they can also be very challenging children to parents and teachers. These same kids that bring all of these gifts, they can be very strong-willed. They can be controlling and even explosive at times. I think these kids need this will because they are going to be living through some hard times, quite probably. You know, already we're starting to suffer some hard times. Who knows what our children and grandchildren are going to be going through. So they need to have this strong will in order to get through. But it can be tricky for parents and teachers to deal with. They can also sometimes be impulsive and distractible. And other kids maybe can be a different challenge in the way of being dreamy, scattered, not quite in this world, maybe quite fidgety. They can't quite sit still. And I think parents will also be able to relate to some of those qualities. You might see some that apply to your child or children you know. So the question I ask, when I'm in my occupational therapy role, I'm always asking why. Why are children like this? Well, when children come into this world from this lovely space of wherever they are before they're born, they're met right now in our present world with so much stimulation, more than children have ever experienced that are coming into the world before. All around us, there are things that beat, flash, make noise, emit electromagnetic radiation. We have stressed families on tight schedules, long hours in school and daycare. And we have a constant stream of frightening news, violence from television, movies, internet, electronic games. It's no wonder these kids can feel quite overwhelmed and withdraw in a way. Like, we came here to bring gifts, and here is all of this confusion and all of this overwhelm. How do we get ourselves into this? And they can be frightened, they can be confused. And just as Manika was talking about interface, there is an interface between this child's soul and they're being able to act out what they're going to be being and doing in the human body, and that's their nervous system. And all of this stimulation, all of this flood and flow of stimulation, it impacts their nervous systems. It's harmful. I mean, we hear a lot about this, about how toxins, electromagnetic stimulation are harmful to children. And one of the first things that they affect is the kid's nervous system. If you think about it, we're in a sea, all of us in a sea of constantly changing stimulation. If you think about it now, what do you feel? Think of everything you feel, not just the obvious things. I mean, I feel my earphones in, that's obvious, but if I think about it, I also feel my body. I feel the clothing on my body. I feel the chair that I'm sitting on. I feel the floor. I feel the heat in the room, maybe little currents of air flowing. And I can hear children in the distance. I can hear fans, air conditioners, hums and roars. I hear so many different things. And the same thing, what you see, what you feel, what you hear, even what you taste. You can smell things in the distance. You can have taste in your mouth. If you think about it, we all have a certain taste in our mouth that we usually tune out. So all of this is too much. It's too much. No one could function if they were aware of all the stimulation coming in all the time. So the nervous system has one of its first jobs to do is to filter out all of the irrelevant sensation and focus only on what it needs to function well. Okay, so it's got a lot to filter so that I can pay attention to what's happening here in this webinar. I can't be listening to everything and hearing everything and feeling everything and tasting everything. I have to be able to focus. This is my nervous system that's doing it. It's the lower centers in my brain where the spinal cord and the brain meet that have that function. And sometimes this system doesn't work so well, especially if the kid has met with this kind of sensory overload when he or she came into the world. And this can affect different kids different ways. Some children may appear to be underactive, sleepy, you might call them lazy, but what's happened is that it's too much for the nervous system, so they kind of check out. They kind of aren't quite fully there and fully present. Or there's another way we said that they may seem dreamy, lazy, or space cadets. But there's another thing kids can do if they have an underactive nervous system. They may be fiddlers and wigglers and constantly trying to touch things. And what they're doing here, they're not, when the kids move around all the time and they touch everything and they're wiggling and they're up and down and they're in and out. It's not really because they want to drive us crazy, although it can make us kind of crazy. It's because they're trying to stay awake and alert. This is their way of giving their body enough stimulation to stay awake and alert. These kids are looking for more sensory input in order to stay awake. Or, on the other hand, they may have a system that's overactive and constantly on high alert and quick, everything is taken in and it's all coming at them and they're trying to pay attention to everything. So these kids are going to be distractible and maybe a bit hyperactive because everything is just always coming at them. Or there's another possibility in the same kids that have the overactive nervous systems, they can try to manage this overactive by becoming controlling. So they say, wait, I'm going to stay in charge here. I'm not going to get overwhelmed. I'm going to be the one in charge so that I can manage all of this stimulation that's coming at me. And they can look like they're stubborn, but they're really just trying to cope because the world is too much for them. And if you try to push them too far, then they can become quite explosive. So these are behaviors that might be irritating or difficult for adults to deal with. But what I want us to realize is that it's really these children, these actually special children, who are doing their best to manage with what they've come into, which is not an easy situation. They might complain about clothing. Oh, it's the tags in my shirt are bothering me. My pants are too tight. Oh, they might complain about textures. I don't want to take my shoes off on the grass. It hurts my feet. Or they might be very reactive to sounds and put their hands over their ears if something happens too suddenly or too loudly. So once the brain has brought in the sensory information and hopefully has organized it the best it can, that sensory information needs to be relayed up to the rest of the brain so that we can think and speak and do. So the part of the brain that I want to talk about right now is these frontal lobes here. And that's in charge of what we call executive functioning. Executive functioning covers a lot of things. It's all the skills that we need in order to be actually getting things done in the world. So it can be attention. We have to be able to pay attention in order to manage in the world. Planning, organizing, time management. And I think we know it's not just children that struggle with all of these things. It's all of us, really. It can be following instructions, remembering where things are. I mean, what's the last time I couldn't find my keys? It hasn't been very long. So we all have these kind of struggles to deal with. They may have trouble controlling their impulses. They may be quite impulsive and just act before they think. They may have trouble managing their frustration or their anger or their anxiety. So they fly off the handle easily. So again, what I want to emphasize here is this is not a moral defect in the children. It's not a character flaw. It's something we want to change, yes, but it's the children are doing the best they can. There are ways we can teach them, and there are ways we can manage these things. And obviously, any of these difficulties can interfere with education at home and education in the school. And there are things parents can do to help. There are actually very specific things parents can do, which I'm not going to be able to go into in this webinar because it would just be too involved and take too much time. For each type of sensory processing problem, there are specific recommendations that a person could make that would help that child. For each of these types of executive function problem, there are specific ways you can teach that to the child, and they need to be taught it. You think it comes automatically, but in some kids it doesn't because of these issues. So they need to be taught it little by little, and there are specific things to do to teach that. But what I do want to talk about right now is things that parents can do, that we can do for all children, that help all these types of children. Now, these are things every parent can do to help their child's nervous system function to its best. One is to establish a daily routine. Kids work best when they know what to expect and they know what comes next. So if you can get a routine of rhythm going in your house, in your family, it will be really helpful to the child. Another thing is to be sure your child gets enough sleep. A lot of times kids stay up late studying because they want to do well in school, their parents want them to do well in school. But what parents may not know is that that's really counterproductive. The child needs sleep for his or her brain to function properly. So it's much better to do some study and then go to bed on time. Here's what is recommended sleep times for different ages. For toddlers, it's 11 to 14 hours, preschoolers, similar. But they're going to be doing more of it at night, not so much of it as naps like the toddlers. School children is 8 to 10 hours. And teens actually need sometimes more sleep than younger children. Their brains are in a time of very fast transition, and they need to get their sleep. So just when they're studying for all of their exams and so on, is just the time that they really need to be getting their sleep. So if you can get that routine going so that things get done earlier in the day, then they'll be able to get to bed and get their sleep at night. You also want to be sure that they get a high quality sleep. And this would include things like make a consistent bedtime that the child adheres to even on the weekends, because that trains the body. It's this time, it's time to fall asleep. Have a relaxing bedtime routine, that should say. So if it's a little child, you might want to read them a story. If it's an older child, they might want to spend a little while reading before bed. But have some routine going that is pretty much the same every evening. Again, this is training the nervous system, training the body and the mind, and to know what to expect and to go to sleep. And studies have shown that the best sleep you get in quiet, dark, cool rooms. So that's not always possible, but we do the best we can with it. In terms of the dark, even a little LED light can be quite disruptive to sleep. The brain is aware that it's there, and the sleep hormones of melatonin are not made properly. So really try to get it as dark as you can. You can also use music to suit the child's activity. So if the child is trying to relax, you can find on YouTube, there's all kinds of wonderful music. There's sleeping music, there's relaxing music, there's studying music, there's all kinds. But if you want to be very technical, there's a certain number of beats per minute that are good for different activities. And you can also, I tried this on YouTube, I searched for music with 50 to 70 beats per minute, and all sorts of things came up, different kinds of music, depending on what you like. So you can use this. If you want to get the kid going, they have to clean their room or something. You use the motivation music, and you go for 120 to 150 beats. And it's magic, you know, it sets the tone and the mood and activates them so that they're ready to go and do what they need to do. You also want to have a toxin-free home as much as possible, because these toxins really impact kids. You know, they're growing kids, and their brains and nervous systems are developing. So no one is perfect here, but the best we can. We try to have organic food and natural pest control. If you Google that, there's so many ways to control every pest naturally. You don't really need the sprays with harsh poison chemicals. Get them soft, natural fiber clothing without a lot of things put in to keep out the wrinkles and all of that kind of thing, because those are chemicals and the kid gets them in their system. And use natural or homemade household cleaning products. It's a really fun thing for children to help you make your cleaning products. And again, there's so many recipes online. It's really fun. And then last, but certainly not least, is the electromagnetic radiation, which we know is harmful for not just children, but adults too. And some sources in most homes would include Wi-Fi, cordless phones, the one it's like a landline, but you pick it up and carry it around. Those are really bad. Those have a lot more than most even microwave ovens. Cell phones have a lot. Microwave ovens have a lot. Also, if you're living near high power lines or cell phone towers, those can really impact your child. There are devices people can get now to help counteract this in the environment. But I think the best thing is to try to keep children away from these devices. What's recommended is at least 6 feet away. So you know what that doesn't mean. It doesn't mean you give a toddler a cell phone to hold and play games on. You know, you limit it very strictly how much time a child should be on devices, because they're harmful in a whole number of ways, radiation being one of them. And you could experiment with turning off all of your electronic devices at night, turning off the Wi-Fi. You're not going to be needing it at night. You know, be sure that all of the microwave and so on is turned off at the wall or unplugged, so that isn't emitting anything. Even your cordless phone, you might want to unplug. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is giving the kids movement. Movement is wonderful. Heavy, strong movement, jumping, running, going out to play, gives them a kind of sensory input that is both calming and alerting at the same time. So I recommend that parents give kids movement early in the day, even before school if they can. It will make the kids much more ready to study and focus when they get to school. And anytime your child seems irritable or distracted or needs a break, if they're doing their homework and they're starting to lag, give them a 5-minute movement break. Have them jump up and down or do jumping jacks or whatever. And this will be helping your whole system to organize itself. And let them have play. Please don't let your child study to the point that he or she never gets to play and have downtime. Those times are very important for the nervous system to integrate itself. If it's just go, 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 it's like things are just getting stacked up on top of one another without having a chance to fall into place and have meaning organize. So when they're playing, when they're just sitting down and talking to friends or whatever your kid likes to do, it's an important part of their day. Don't discount it. It's needed. It's there for a reason. It lets the child integrate all the things that have happened, all the things they learned during that day. They need that relaxation.
Okay.
So the last thing is, let's just make it as easy as possible for these new children to do what they came here to do.
Yeah. So Manika, normally when we talk about children, the parent playing an active or vital role in the child's education, we generally think of younger kids. So how does a parent's role change as the child grows in regards to education?
Sure. So one thing I like to share with her while Taryn was going through her, how beautifully she explained about these new age children. I would write, in fact, I would like to label, we have even new age parents, where along with these children, we have parents who have really no hold or idea on how to handle these challenges as well. You know, I always look at it like, let's say, go back a couple of generations. You go back to our grandparents' time, and there is a natural flow. There's a natural evolution of the brain that happens along the line. Now, what happens is that as this evolution is happening, parallelly, there is an evolution in the parenting also that happens. So when these two things are happening at the same pace, then you don't have much of a challenge. Of course, it becomes a little bit more easier. So if you will look at the parenting style that was adopted by our grandparents, our parents did not take it as it is. It was shifted, you know, there was a change in it. Now, when we come to this new age generation children, which we have, what has happened over the last 2 decades is an exponential growth on the evolution aspect, on the space where, as Terran was mentioning, the kind of birth that the souls are taking place, their sensitivity, the exposure that is happening all around us. Over the last 2 decades, the things have just shifted exponentially. So now it becomes a very challenging act for a parent, because they are also into a space where they are not aware, or it becomes very overwhelming for them how to handle these challenges, right? So now I look at parenting not as you know, something which is add on as a journey just as parenting. I feel it is literally a journey of relationship that is happening. And when we start viewing it as a relationship that keeps growing and evolving, and we are putting it our effort to make it work as well, then we are able to get something beautiful out of it. So when we are talking about early age children or children under 15 years of age, you know, you're, as I said before, we are creating the belief system for them. We are working on that space. And at that point of time, if as parent, you are aware, you have experienced these things, that how do I handle these vibrations around me? Do I have I developed the sensitivity enough? Am I aware of my own self, that when I have overdone the screen, how do I handle it? You know, then you will be able to guide your child. Right now, what is happening is all the schools are online. You know, children, that is the reality what we have ended up into, where even the education has come online. Now, what do you do then? You cannot tell them, you cannot restrict their screen hours, but if you yourself are sensitive enough and you have equipped yourself as a parent to guide them, you will be able to handle it. So in my opinion, in the early years, you work as a facilitator for your child. Your role is more of a facilitator. And the more you are empowered with the skill of facilitation, you have to equip yourself. You have to learn about these things and read more about these things and be more self-observant. Bring it that self-awareness that when I am experiencing this particular emotion or something, why is it so? So this is something that you really want to reflect upon in the early years. But now, when your child is going into a stage of teenager, you are also growing into your relationship, where now from a facilitator, you should evolve into a space of a partner. It should be more of a hand-in-hand experience. And you know, where they still need your guidance, but you need to understand that they need some space as well. So this is what I will say as parents, and putting into the space of education as well. If they want to explore something, talk to them, understand them, why they are looking for this particular stream, why not the other one. You can present your opinion, but work it out as a partnership. So if you will look at it in facilitation, your role was more, a child's role was less. But here, it's kind of, you have come to a middle ground here. But once they have gone beyond and they are adults, your parenting the journey is still going on. Now you're not a parent of a teenager. You are a parent of an adult, right? Once you have taken that role, then you become a guide. Then you are guiding them. Whenever they need your opinion, they'll come to you and you are there to guide them. But while thinking on this subject, one more role came into my view when I was looking at this journey of relationship. Eventually, this whole journey turns into a relationship till a grandparent. See, that's why they are called parents still, because they are grand, but they are parents. And somewhere we restart, and it is a combined journey. Your approach is it's all the three things of the relationship that you have experienced all through your life with your child. You have to hold it together as a grandparent and use it intelligently, which to be used when. So you start playing a role which is literally evolved out of your parenting. So that's what I would like. I would have loved to share that parenting is a lot more than understanding just the sensory input of a child, understanding what is the behavior challenges that a child is going through. Because if you really want to make an impact through your parenting, you'll have to constantly work towards it. Just like any other relationship, you need to work to enhance this for yourself. See, when we were, any parent who is an educated parent, a child comes to them, can you solve 1 + 1? We literally, without a second thought, we are able to do it, right? But when it comes for us to handling our emotions, our EQ, it becomes a completely different ballgame. So we have to equip ourselves enough to make sure that we are prepared at each level of the journey as a child goes into, and we also go along with it.
It's really nice the way you put the whole thing into steps of how you go from a facilitator to a partner to a guide to a combination of all three. It's a really well put thing. So,
I want to put in one comment there, and we won't do it perfectly,
Yes.
And I also want to just add, as a grandmother, it's such a wonderful experience because some of the mistakes that you made as a mother, some of the things you wish you had done differently, you get another chance with your grandchild. It's a very special kind of relationship.
yeah. So we only have time for one more question. So I just want to ask you, how do we empower parents to play an active role in the child's education? Because right now we don't have that a lot.
How do we say it again, please?
How do we empower parents to play an active role in their child's education?
Well, I think we've covered a lot of that. I mean, Manika suggested knowing a lot about the school, and I would suggest developing a relationship with the school so that there's a lot of easy give and take between the parent and the school, between the parent and the teacher, so they can keep in close touch about the child and how they're doing, so that it feels like everybody is working together with the child rather than having it be school and home, that we're all having the same goals and emphasis, not exactly the same, but that they coordinate well together. They're not going to be at odds with one another. So I think that's really important. Keep in touch and understand what's happening at school, and let the teachers and the school know what's happening at home. If the child has some kind of stress, maybe a grandparent has died or the father is sick or, whatever, be sure that the school is aware of that, so that again, there can be this kind of ease of flow between home and school. I think that that's really important. I don't know, do you have something else to add to that, Manika?
No, you have put it perfectly. Yeah, I mean, I think we have discussed quite a lot in this webinar, and there is a lot for people to get, think about it, and probably we can have a second round to go deeper into the concepts that we have just touched upon over here, because these concepts are very elaborative, and in one session it's very difficult to put everything in. But just as an overview, you have really summed up beautifully. Just to add one thing, that keep evolving yourself as parents in all the spheres, not only emotionally, but becoming a holistic parent as well is something which is very important, because unless we as parents become aware of this holistic aspect of ourselves, we won't be able to imbibe a holistic education space in the world, which is need of the hour. That's what I like to say.
You guys have put it really well. I mean, I don't even have to summarize it. You guys have summarized the whole talk in such a nice way. So that brings us to the end of the webinar. So it was a pleasure talking to both of you. And for all the viewers, we have webinars every day, and these webinars range from various topics. And these are topics that most of us either are trying to deal with or can relate to. So I request you all to tune in to those. And we also have a COVID relief fund. So if anyone wishes to donate to it or make any contributions, you're welcome to. And lastly, if anyone wants to know more about Heartfulness, what it is about and what it is we do, we have links in the description below. Please click on it and learn more. So that brings us to the end of the webinar. It was amazing to talk to both of you. I've learned so much myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Shruti. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, Shruti.
Thank you.